Now, what are these fundamental rights? That includes the information privacy in Article
Yeah,
21.
absolutely. Hello and welcome to Policy Square, an expert interview series where we speak to people behind the scenes and people driving public policy and people impacted by public policy. It's an initiative of Primus Partners in association with our media partners Business World. In this series, we go beyond the headlines and look at what's driving the headlines and really how does it impact the environment, the society, and the larger business. Today, we are very fortunate to have Dr. Amar Patnaik with us. Dr. Amar Patnaik really needs no introduction, but he is a member of parliament from Orissa in the Rajya Sabha from Biju Janata Dal. He's also a member to the Joint Parliamentary Committee for Personal Data Protection Bill, as well as the Finance Committee. What makes him unique in the JPC is his background. He's a career civil servant. He's also a PhD in institutional economics and has written extensively and covered areas across technology, across environment, across economy. He's also written a book on institutional change in the context of rural economy. Dr. Patnaik, thank you so much for being here today. We are talking in the context of the report that you just tabled a couple of days back. Many believe it's one of the most consequential piece of legislation that the government is working on because today it impacts every aspect of it because we're becoming more and more a society which is creating more and more data. I think just to start, would you want to give us the context and really what are we trying to achieve here through this JPC process?
You're absolutely right that this is, to my mind, this is one of the most important legislation in independent India because data was anyway getting generated. One never knew how we are using that data on one hand and whether the person from whom or the citizens from whom the data is generated, what kind of harm is being caused to him or what kind of benefit is also being caused to him by evidence-based policy planning. So this entire thing has come up after the Puttaswamy judgment, as we all know, the two judgments. And it set the, and that also emanated because of the first effort to digitize data on a large scale of that Aadhaar case, EYDI. So now the point is once data has been generated, collected and stored, there are two things. One, so the same question, whether how to use the data for the benefit of society, for the benefit of citizens, and at the same time ensuring that the citizens' data is not misused in a manner to harm them. So these two things had to be balanced. And that is basically what the Puttaswamy judgment says. And once the Puttaswamy judgment declared that this is informational privacy is a part of Article 21, part of fundamental rights, which is not there in any other country, and that's how this bill makes it completely different. We can't really compare it to EU GDPR or other countries because this puts informational privacy on a very firm footing. And even though this balance has to be maintained, I believe the balance has to be, whenever there is a question of interpretation, it has to be interpreted in favor of the citizen, which is the informational privacy. Then would come the question of using this data for various purposes, evidence-based policy planning for the benefit of people, for modeling, for meeting a health disaster like the current one, but the informational privacy has to be respected. Even during the pandemic, in the EU countries, the EU GDPR didn't give any leeway to the countries to breach the informational privacy of citizens, even though it is not a fundamental right there. So that is why I think this legislation is historic when it gets passed. And most importantly, I'm very happy about this particular fact that the kind of consultation we had in the committee over a period of time, about 1.5 years, despite the first wave of the pandemic and the second wave, I think almost every week the committee used to be sitting. And the widest consultation possible. I'm new to the parliament, but people say that this kind of consultation has not happened. So the effort has gone into making this law as robust as possible. There would probably be definitely chinks here and there, latches here and there. So when the implementation will happen, then these issues will probably emerge, and the law will the law would call for amendments and changes. But overall, I think the background is now that is well set, that the citizen would now be treating his data as an asset, his own asset, just like he has his own house, his table, chair, furniture, whatever. And before parting with that asset, just like if you want to give your house on rent, you sign an agreement, a contract, you first have to agree that I'll give my house on rent. So here the citizen's consent has to be taken that his data will be used.
Yeah.
And he has to be told for what purpose it would be used,
That's true.
for how long it would be stored, and what is the accountability.
That's true.
So this, I think, is for the first time, the data gatherers, the data users, the data processors would be under a kind of obligation to respect
Right.
the citizens' data and not consider themselves as the owner of data.
Correct.
The owner of the data is the citizen of India.
Absolutely. In fact, you spoke about two things, about the historic nature of the bill and the fact that the long process. In fact, many have said that this took a long time to do, 6 extension. So what were some of the themes that drove this extension, sir, or really where there were lots of arguments or discussions about it?
I think the most important thing that comes to my mind was that the bill had 98 sections. So consensus was there in the committee that we would go clause by clause, section by section. I don't know how many bills any committee would have gone clause by clause, section by section. When we go by clause, in fact, clause by clause and section by section comes later. In fact, before that, starting from the preamble itself. Therefore, you would see that the report which has been laid talks about a single data protection bill,
That's
not
true.
a personal data protection bill.
Correct.
So that discussion itself, whether to treat data as one wholesome thing, comprising both personal and non-personal, whether it is easy to distinguish or very difficult to distinguish, the final consultation resulted in this idea that data can't be separated really, very difficult because there are mixed data sets. De-identification is always possible depending on the kind of decryption keys available as technology improves, and therefore, so you can see that from the definition of the bill itself,
Correct.
or the naming of the bill itself, we have gone through the consultation. And when this happens, it takes a lot of time. But most importantly, as I understand, I was told by the Secretariat that there were about 2,000 organizations who wanted to depose before the committee. Some, obviously 2,000 couldn't be accommodated, but some would accommodated, and they were from diverse fields. Academia, law, national law universities, of course from the big tech companies, all of them. Those who are in fact, someone like Truecaller, who is not into the business of what the Facebook and Twitter are doing, but they were also called.
Correct.
The local e-commerce platforms were called. The people who are the civil society organizations who are working in the field of national security, strategic defense, and all these aspects, those who are working in the area of health, all of them were consulted. And so these people had to be called. Even though they were not called, whatever people had submitted in writing, I think reams of paper that had to be perused, and that the essence taken. So even if they were not present, those points raised by them were discussed in the committee. And therefore, if you look at 98 sections, and each section, if it takes 2 hours, you can imagine, calculate and see how many days it would take.
No, absolutely. I mean, I don't think it normally happens that way. And so congratulations on that. So you spoke about the fact that so many institutions were covered, think tanks, industry, state governments, central government, and many others. Were there really very differing viewpoints, and especially state governments? State governments' role have been brought into this one. So what was the logic on the state government part of it as well?
So we consulted in physical form 2 state governments during field visits. One was the state government of Maharashtra. The other one was Karnataka. While all of them, at least both of them, said in unison that they had not really gone through the bill in greater detail to understand the import or that the bill is going to have on the way public administration is run in this country, public policy is being made in this country. So there was a capacity building issue which was highlighted by them. Of course, is an administrative decision. That's not a part of the bill, not required to be a part of the bill. But all of them, both of them rather, talked about the need for setting up a state-level data protection authority. Something which I had been talking about for long. That is the view of my state government as well, even though we have not been formally consulted. And that is why I have given my dissent note containing this particular aspect of the need for setting up a state-level data protection authority. I had raised it repeatedly in the committee itself, but it was not considered because I still feel that the committee members do not understand the actual way government functions, bureaucracy functions. Local level government, district administration and the administration below functions. And had they had that background, I think it would have been probably, they would have all concurred to having a state level data protection authority. But then most of the issues that the state government raised was on capacity issues. So that would be another huge thing.
That's true.
That the every state government, every central government, the data protection authority which is going to be set up, whose mandate is also to create this awareness, would be actually saddled with.
Yeah.
And that would be very important because unless that is done,
Correct.
It is not a question of actually following the letter. It is also the spirit. You have to understand that data is now an asset which is that of the citizen. It has to be valued. You can't just treat it like it's available for free, and can be used in any manner without keeping him in the dark. So this regime or a new ecosystem for data that is being created through this bill in the personal data protection and in the non-personal data bill eventually when it comes, but of course the report is already there.
Correct.
Then the entire data regime in this country gets legislative backing, and it can be enforced in the code of law as a fundamental right, particularly the personal data protection, thanks to the Supreme Court judgment. So this entire internalization of the spirit of the data protection bill has to be permeating to the lowest formations of government as well as the private sector. And that is going to be a huge thing. It will take some amount of time. Therefore, we have provided for transition times as well, which was not there in the original bill. I think the report talks about transition time, and which will eventually, you will see when the bill finally gets laid. So I think we have just got the structure ready, but to make it well-oiled, functioning machine or delivering the goods that it is supposed to deliver, the object of the act being what it is, will take time.
No, absolutely, sir. I think the fact that you're a civil servant, gets you the insight of implementation. And I think you're so right about capacity, because as you said, this is an asset of every Indian citizen or every resident. And to be aware that it's an asset and how to use it requires a huge amount of communication. I just wanted to bring in Ruhail, who's a senior editor.
I'm just enjoying listening to these insights. I just want to touch upon the point of data localization, which has become a key concern for most of the stakeholders, especially you're bringing it up, in your conversations and in your the way you intervened. Just give me a sense of, can you help us understand the challenges that the committee and the government sees, which is underscoring, the priority for data localization?
See, the bill talks about categorizes data, unlike the EU GDPR. It talks about critical personal data, sensitive personal data, and data as it is. So the data localization, the term which people are using, not used in the bill, but the people are using that, refers to actually the first two, which is critical personal data and sensitive personal data, which is a small chunk of the entire thing. Even in sensitive personal data, cross-border data flow is not a problem if you're keeping a mirror image of the data with you.
Right.
It is only critical personal data which has to be processed in India. So that's a very small percentage. The big use of data as an asset or data as a new oil, as they say, would be using data for the benefit of citizens, for evidence-based policy making, for better forecast of, let's say, disasters, for better prediction of how a health pandemic is going to spread out in which geography, in which particular area. So I think there is absolutely no problem in that particular, all these use cases.
Right.
Even in this critical personal data, my view, which I have aired in writing also, which I have aired before and written in newsprint as well, is the fact that it is time that India realizes the potential of the data it generates from its 1.4 billion people. And this data currently gets stored somewhere outside. If India realizes the full potential of actually providing data storage services to the entire world and not depend on the world servers outside, within the country itself, I think that itself would be the biggest mileage for us, in the biggest revenue generator for us, and India can become the data capital of the world. People would look up to India for storing that data. So we have to provide that particular infrastructural support as well as the legislative support. Maybe
Right.
there will be a need for a separate legislation for it. So data localization, people shouldn't get afraid of it at all. In fact, I think data localization would help build India into a data market, a data capital of the world. New jobs would be created, new innovative ways of storage of data would happen. The cost of storage even may come down than what currently people are being charged by the servers outside, may actually come down. And then people will be attracted here. So I think this is a very significant and futuristic provision in the legislation. I in fact look forward to it.
So if I could just follow up on that, with respect to the evolution of data regulation, one view that is coming out is that the information and data that private organizations are collecting are no longer to be treated as their data but a national asset. There could, something that the non-personal data report in 2020 kind of reflected upon it, or even going back to 2019 when the draft e-commerce policy talked about it. What's the view that you have or the committee has in terms of saying that the private organizations spend time and money in collecting that data, non-personal data, but today will become a national data and it's going to get regulated about?
See, I think in that particular aspect, there's little bit of a gray area, because as far as personal data is concerned, the citizen is the data principal is the owner.
Sure.
Citizen is the prime actor there, and therefore, if you have to take his data, you have to seek his consent in all cases. You have to mention the purpose for which it is being used
Sure.
also. Now, after taking the data, there are various provisions in the bill. In some cases, further consent is not required for processing.
Sure.
In some cases, further consent is also required. Now, there I don't see any problem, because the owner of the data is being consulted.
Sure.
In the non-personal data protection report, it's not yet got into legislation. The only provision in the personal data the current bill that you will see is section 91. Now you will see in the bill it is 92, which says that the government could actually take data from people for evidence-based policy planning. You are right that they are collecting the data from the citizen. They are using resources for it. And then that will be treated as community data and whatever government could do it. I really don't know whether it will be through a contractual arrangement based on a commercial price
Absolutely.
involved, in which case government itself buys data from them because they have collected it.
Correct.
Because had government itself deployed these resources, they may have spent some money.
Correct.
So that particular thing is not very clear. I don't think it is automatic community data. It is only when I think a larger public purpose would be served. But that can also be, that would probably require a commercial value to be paid.
Absolutely.
If government wants to set up a hospital which is in the public interest, it spends money.
Sure.
So maybe that kind of an architecture would come, which is not very clear at all
Fair.
currently. So I think when it gets legislated, this particular aspect would come in. I fully agree that if someone has collected the data, someone has spent its resources, someone is developing the algorithms to use that data for for his even commercial interest, that has to be respected. Otherwise, no innovation will take place and nothing will happen. But I don't think there is any problem in that as long as he's taking the consent and this.
Absolutely.
And as far as non-personal data is there, if he's getting a price for it.
Correct.
Because it is anyways not his data.
Absolutely.
He's only collecting it.
Absolutely.
Just as government is also collecting it.
No, absolutely right, sir. Because end of the day, a lot of data is used for innovation.
Innovation for all kinds of things.
Absolutely.
In fact, I have been toying with the idea of something called as data equity. In all these discussions, you talked about resources to get that data. The person whose data is not getting anything.
Yeah.
Except some service which the government says it will give. Or a Facebook says that we are giving you the service of, you are able to post your picture there. Or WhatsApp, you are saying we're able to message there. But he's not really getting. So how far he is empowered to deal with his own data against the big giants who are collecting the data on his behalf is something which I think eventually will come up. But that's my thought which I might be writing on.
Absolutely. When you talk about thoughts that you will be writing about, you've said in some of the interviews of key aspects or some areas that you would have wanted more to be talked about. What are those areas where you think we still need to discuss it and deliberate about as we move forward?
I talked about the state level data protection authority.
Yeah.
There are two issues there. It's an implementation issue, which is, as I said, that if a data principal in some village in Orissa or in Madhya Pradesh says that his data has been breached from the office of the block development officer or has been leaked from the block development officer, and because of which there has been a threat to his life or threat to his family's life. Do you think the Central Data Protection Authority will be able to handle these kind of issues? Number one. So the implementation issue. And remember, these data initially are collected manually.
That's true.
It gets then finally converted into an electronic form at the collector level. Initially, it is actually not there. Eventually, when it becomes completely digitized in our country because of the BharatNet and all this, that penetration is increasing.
Yeah.
Even then, to solve an issue in a village, because anything is data, his picture is also data, for a central authority to decide. Now, the solution to that could be that central authority could have several branches in states.
That's
What could happen? Here comes the more important question and the more salient difference why the Central Data Protection Authority will not work, and that there is a need for having state level data protection authorities, and that's the center-state relation, the federal cooperative federalism, or forget about cooperative, the federalism itself. In the federal scheme of things, you would see that, why should it happen that the collector of a district charged with the, the complaint of data having been leaked from his office by a data principal will be decided by a Central Data Protection Authority.
true.
So the center-state relations, and that would actually be in even the CM's office.
That's true. Absolutely.
So I don't think this will work actually, and there could be tremendous accusations of federal override. So this will not work, and therefore I think the state level data protection authority will eventually have to come, just like the Right to Information Act.
Yeah.
There is a state level authority.
Correct.
The Consumer Protection Act. There is a state level authority. If you are treating data as an asset and the data principal is a consumer who is going to get some benefits, then why should he run to the Central Data Protection Authority? There was a view that people can email and get that, the grievance redressed. But as I said, what is the digital literacy to come up to that level? So the state level data protection authority, I think there is a strong ground for it. Another important point again, which is a constitutional issue, is in section 35, at many other places also, public order is provided in the clause. If you look at public order, it is actually in the state list.
Yeah.
Now, why should the central government be legislating and enforcing the provisions of the Act on the state list? And even on implementation, if there is fear of a communal riot in, let's say, some place in Kerala, and therefore this SP of that district feels like taking data of citizens or analyzing the data of citizens without consulting them because to control the thing, he has to take permission from the Central Data Protection.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
Sure.
So I think these are the issues which I had raised. As I said, I think my background as a civil servant, I can foresee these problems coming up. Honorable members of parliament, of course, they are very astute politicians who have seen the field work and all, who have worked in the field. But a technical solution or technology itself cannot solve citizens' problems in all cases unless there are structural issues which are involved, addressed. And in this case, this is the structural problem which the implementation of the data protection bill that is going to come up will fix. And so that's another area. So I think and then, a lot of benefits or a lot of overrides of the citizens' consent is provided for in the bill for meeting health challenges, education, and some other provisions. Again, health is a state subject.
Correct.
Education is a state subject. Now, what is important from the point of view of health in Orissa may not be the same in Maharashtra and Gujarat. So I think we would be giving a bill. It's going to be a historic bill that it for the first time recognizes certain things, principles, and the principles are well laid out, which was anyway taken from the Puttaswamy judgment. But the rule, either in the rules or in the regulations that the Data Protection Authority is going to come about, these have to be addressed. And the third point is relating to the independence of the central DPA, which many people have talked about.
Sure.
I think it is very important that both the citizen as well as the users of the data, the processors of data, the business, the government, it is in their interest to have a very independent authority, because I can also foresee that I probably discussed this with some members of parliament earlier, and which Honorable Finance Minister has recently said, that as far as data is concerned, eventually there is going to be a world body like
That's
the
true.
WTO.
Absolutely.
Because cross-border data flows will happen.
Yeah.
And you can't keep on having the FTAs, bilateral agreements. But for having all these bilateral agreements and cross-border data flow, another country should believe that your DPA is independent enough to safeguard his data when it is coming here. If he doesn't believe, if I don't believe that my data going to Afghanistan or Pakistan is not going to be safeguarded, India will not send it.
Yeah.
So I think it is in the interest of government that we need to have an extremely independent data protection authority that inspires confidence world over.
Yeah.
Which we have. For example, we have the Election Commission, it inspires confidence, the CAG inspires confidence, the UPSA inspires confidence. I think we need to build that.
Yeah.
And that, I think, in the selection process could be improved by having a judicial presence, which is not there currently.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things where I think, I have again mentioned in my dissent note that it could have been improved. But more important than just selection of that person, proof of the pudding will lie in eating, that how independently he exercises the data protection law against, as I said, the biggest violators of fundamental rights are the governments. Not just central government, state government, local government, any government. And that is what is the informational privacy of citizens has to be safeguarded.
Just want to understand how the big tech companies have responded so far, because they would get affected by this in a very big way going forth if it is implemented, the bill is out. Give me a sense of that. Is there also a fear of their legislation battles becoming more fierce as we move on?
See, the world over, the big tech companies who have previously didn't have any legislative restraint or any kind of restraint whatsoever backed by legislation or by rules or even by a uniform countrywide architecture are now facing this. Not just in India, they have the EU GDPR in Europe. We have in several countries are now started having the modeling, having a data protection law modeled on the EU GDPR. Australia already had, US had sectoral laws. India, China has completely banned many of these big tech companies, so they are not affected. But India, then that's why is the next biggest. 1.4 billion people are there, so the amount of data that's generated, and this is the data on which these big tech companies are surviving for growing their business. So the sense is that they obviously they will be uncomfortable with it, and as you would have seen in intermediary guidance, they were very uncomfortable with it. But eventually, I think they would fall in line simply because of the fact that number one, it's a huge market, so they just can't afford to get out of it. Number two, and more importantly, it is in their interest because if we don't have a legislation, you have a EU GDPR and we don't have any data law. EU GDPR countries might say that we will not send data to India because we are not sure that how our citizens' data would be treated there.
Yeah.
Then what happens? These Facebooks of the world or the Twitters of the world, they don't know boundaries. The internet doesn't know any geographical boundaries of countries. So if this entire thing has to really grow, it has to grow all over the world. And therefore the legislation will have to be also all over the world. Some kind of uniformity would be there. And this has happened. For several years, they were not paying any taxes. And you see the G7 they decided that there will be a minimum tax will be imposed on their profits by countries all over because the incidence of profit was was always changing for them. They could actually book the profit in some country while operating in India. Just as example, for example, in India they don't have an office, so they didn't have it. It's only the intermediary guidelines which has come out with their requirement of having it, and they are having it.
So just a couple of other questions, sir. There's some concerns people have raised around the definition of critical personal data, and could the request be arbitrary to be able to provide that? Do you see that as a concern?
So this critical personal data will be notified from time to time. I see merit in it simply because of the fact that data's use actually determines whether that data is critical or not.
That's true.
A health data may not be critical for education. So I think therefore this flexibility had to be provided because if you define critical personal data, everything there itself, each time you have to come to the Parliament for a change in the amendment in the Act, for adding or subtracting.
Sure.
So this leeway has been given. Having said so, your concern is also very valid, legitimate. Therefore, the need for having an extremely independent data protection authority.
Absolutely.
And if we have that, then the cases going again traveling up to our constitutional courts to enforce our citizens' rights will lessen or the burden will decrease. Otherwise, again people will run there and the whole purpose of this legislation will be different.
Absolutely, sir. Comes to the last point and last question in a sense, sir. How do you see the roadmap for it to actually getting done? What do you see the next steps? I know the committee has submitted thing, and people have also talked about how does that, because technology keeps changing very fast, how does the law keep pace as after it's enacted?
Two parts to your question. So one, as far as technology and regulation, law and regulation always falls behind technology. There's no doubt about it. I see any of these technology-related laws would have to evolve with the technology, would have to quickly catch up as quickly as possible. So amendments and all this will happen. What is the standard of encryption now would be available to everybody after about probably a year or so. So, so this will happen. So this has to evolve. And therefore the Data Protection Authority will really have to be extremely smart and agile because they should be the one who should first detect the change in technology where a data principal's data is getting compromised for various reasons or is getting processed without his consent and immediately take corrective action. So this will keep on happening. Now that is why I believe that even after this bill, the report has come, the report of the committee, after that the bill will come in the revised format, it will get discussed and passed. I don't see in getting it done in this session, but maybe in the budget session. But then the big work starts. The amount of work starts only after that.
Rules.
And that is first making a regulation.
Yeah.
Getting a data protection authority in place. That's why in the report we have said within this many months you should have the DPA, within this many months you should have. The DPA's job is humongous because it's going to make regulations
Yeah.
compliant with the different technologies available.
That's true.
IoT, all kinds of things
Correct.
are available. Everything is, data is now getting generated. And then the rules, the central government will have to make the
Made
rules.
Yeah.
And then another important area, which again I have been saying, is that there are sectoral laws. The TRAI is there, the RBI is there, the Banking Regulation Act is there, the SEBI Act is there. All these are sectoral regulators. There are state level sectoral regulators
That's true.
for state data that is being generated. Now, there has to be harmony. Because in the law, we say, the law says, the section says that the Central Data Protection Authority will have consultations
Consultations.
with each of the sectoral regulators, will probably have an MOU kind of a thing. In case of conflict, however, the Data Protection Authority as defined in this particular act will prevail. So there, I again foresee a turf war unless this synchronization takes place.
Absolutely.
So these are huge work jobs. You know, I don't think I can't say they're even work in progress. They haven't even started. I hope the government actually realizes that this is a mammoth job that has to happen.
Absolutely.
And therefore they need again for a state level data protection authority.
Correct.
Because there are state laws from where data will be generated. Those state laws will be different. For example, there is a gaming banning law in Karnataka, it's not there in Orissa.
Absolutely.
Now who is going to do about this?
Absolutely.
The Central Data Protection Authority will have no idea.
Correct.
It can't make rules here sitting here in Delhi about what is happening in Kerala or Chennai. So
Absolutely.
had it been there, they would have actually got this work done.
Yeah.
And it would have been faster rollout of the data protection bill. So I still feel that even after, while discussing this bill and finally getting it passed, if these issues get ironed out, a clear roadmap is laid out by government, I'll be asking for it. Then it will be better because a huge amount of work remains to be done for this act to get operationalized, and countries all over the world, transferring the data to this country based on these. They would not also like to go to approach the courts of this country because that would increase their transaction cost, they would increase their compliance cost.
Absolutely.
So we have to be very careful to ensure that things move very fast. Of course, not as fast as technology, but as fast as possible in terms of not affecting the current level of business that is going on in this country. The growth of digital economy that we are forcing, which is actually possible. It's a huge aspiration, but it's possible. So I think this is what the government should be thinking of and move very fast.
No, absolutely. So thank you so much for this. You said move very fast. Governments have known to be not moving very fast, but we'll see the next few weeks and months about how this gets implemented. Thank you so much, Dr. Patnaik.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.